Well, with me is Chris Thomas, Douglas Central, and also, of course, the Minister DOI. And we have lots to talk about.
Not the beginning of the administration.
No, we have lots to talk about. I wanted to look back at this year, first of all, and thanks for coming. We have had to reschedule this so many times. You are a busy, busy person. And I'm glad to say, as always, brings the law manifesto.
I brought the one before that as because manifestos are so important to me. I've been really looking forward to this chat, Paul, and I'm so sorry that I had to postpone a few times.
No, not at all.
But I always enjoy and appreciate your contribution to public policy development.
Thank
In
you.
that sense, we're alike, because policy matters much more than the person. I'm looking forward to talking with you about some of those issues.
Well, let's look back on the year before. Before you were the minister, you were the guy on the backbenches. You were giving government a lot of questions, a lot of, interaction. Then, of course, you do become minister. Now, that did happen in the last year, so we have to deal with it all in that sense. But first of all, take us back through the year. I mean, what was it like for you? What's been going on?
Well, personally, I haven't had the best year. My father passed away in November, and he had a diagnosis which was terminal for quite some time before that. And my mother had 4 months at the crucial time when she was completely incapacitated through what she calls a vanity knee operation now. So that was a bad year. I think you know quite a lot about my family, and I've got a disabled son. So and personally, it wasn't the best. But I say personality doesn't matter. The person doesn't matter. It's the policy that matters. And I made quite a shorter manifesto than lots of people, but I think it had a lot of substance. It took me a long time to write. And what I said, my first priority was that this election needed to be a bit different from previous elections, and the formation of the government needed to be a bit different. And essentially, I failed in that sense. I only came second in Douglas Central election, although the number of votes I got and the percentage of the votes definitely put me in the top 10, and perhaps even put me 7th or 8th.
You'd gone for Chief Minister and all that. We had that conversation, didn't you? But because you didn't come first, you thought not to...
That's it. I announced on that night, because although my percentage of the vote, Anne Collett did really well, Damien Chappelli did really, really well. My percentage of the vote was pretty high relative to lots of other constituencies. But basically what I said was that the election and then the formation of the government was when the big policy challenges that we definitely face had to be agreed in Tynwald House of Keys in front of the electorate before the Chief Minister and the government was formed. And what happened? We're still settling the big policy challenges and what we're going to do about them now. And the formation of the government was a bit of a fudge. It was the person who stood against Mr. Cannan became the Treasury Minister like previous time, and so on and so on. So
jobs for the boys if you as a runner-up prize sort of thing.
Well, I didn't say that, but what I did say is 12 months on, or slightly more, 14 months on, we're still not really clear about what's going to happen to the gas pipeline and exactly how we're going to generate alternative energy. And the Island Conference was excellent in the summer, but we're still settling big policy questions a year on after the election.
Well, that's that's the first year you're not a minister initially. Were you disappointed in that, not being asked into the tent?
I know, I was asked in. I was involved in all the discussions that happened immediately after
the election.
Oh, you just
didn't want to do it?
I've just said, the main reason is my priority number one was to settle the big policy.
Yeah, but you're in there now, so, things change.
I made the point. So in those first Keys and Tynwalds, I tried to set up a situation where actually in the chamber we could see who was standing behind whom and what policies were important to different people and who was on the same side in respect of each of those policy issues, not just in terms of, ministerial appointments and personality things. And that didn't happen, but I had to be outside government if I was going to do that. And I could see there was lots of compromises being made. It's not a bad thing in itself to make a compromise, but when you are going to make a compromise,
you compromise.
What I'm saying is you can't compromise on what we're going to do about the big policy challenges, and there are still differences inside Tynwald House of Keys and probably even inside.
So being in Coman is better, therefore, to argue things directly rather than just being a thorn in their side.
Well, I don't think I really was necessarily a thorn in the side in October. I was trying to be the constructive challenger, and I was flattered by Mrs. Christian in the House of Keys this week, who called me the wise minister or something like that. I don't know if she meant to flatter me, but that was one of the nicest things people have said to me, because I often fancy myself as a bit of an owl rather than a chicken running around headless, But anyhow, I don't think I was a thorn in the side for the sake of it, but I wanted to comment critically on the formation of the government, on some of the issues and policies that were being laid down to deal with the substantial challenges that we have. And then through time, you have to make the choice. Are you better off working from outside to make sure what you believe to be the right thing and what you believe the public needs
What's
is
the
done?
answer?
And I accepted.
I know, but is that the answer? I mean, is that...
Who knows?
Have you changed your mind yet?
Who knows? Wise people reflect constantly in terms of what's happening. But we're definitely in a better place. The government's definitely in a better place now than it was 14 months ago. And I think Department of Infrastructure was the biggest challenge. I was offered 3 jobs before I got the Minister of Infrastructure.
You wanted that one?
I really, really wanted it.
Now, this is the department that's not fit for purpose, remind me. That's what the Chief Minister did say at the time, didn't he?
And so that's a challenge in itself. But also the Department of Infrastructure has often got an unjustified set of criticisms leveled.
Oh, it's a whipping boy. There's no question about it. Let's face it. We all have an opinion about them because it affects us all, doesn't it, on the roads and everything.
And the serious challenges about looking about the future of the Isle of Man and all of us in the Isle of Man depend so much on decisions and actions that the Department of Infrastructure takes. So, for instance, the ferry terminal for our lifeline sea routes, the airport and the airline services we have from the airport.
I'm going to do a whole interview with you on this separately, by the way. But overall, how have you found it? Let's do that. I mean, you walked in there. Was it fit for purpose? Did you find it in all sorts of internal wrangles?
Some big personnel changes happened just as I walked in, on the same day as I walked in, and now I'm working with some excellent staff. One of my 5 top challenges that we needed to address was that public servants are just, especially in the DOI, you've used the phrase whipping boy, get savaged from outside, and also they get knocked from pillar to post by politicians who keep changing their mind and doing suboptimal things often. So I wanted to work with them, try and help them re-establish themselves, do the right things by the public, and that's what we're trying to do wherever we look. Local authorities,
you're leading from the front on this, though.
I think I am. I don't get a lot of chance to write things down like I can do, but I like to think that I've got the respect still of the officers and bringing the best out of them and working with them.
We'll talk more about that. But seriously, all these other things that have gone on this year, tell me what have you achieved? So, if you can park that one thing to one side.
Okay, so first of all, in terms of big policy directions, firstly, gas regulation is in a better place, and as a consequence, regulation is in a better place overall, and that's been...
Hang on. Tim was in charge of that. Now it's not. It's outsourced, isn't it? Deciding that. Was that really the right way of doing it, do you think?
Yes. So now we've got professionals professionally managing economic regulation, and in my new role in DOI, I'm working with the economic regulator, Cura, to make sure that we look after customers better and the technical aspects of regulation. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to be in DOI, so we can actually put in place. I do think we've got ourselves, one of the issues I'm challenged about is the way that we've subsidised electricity customers and people like me who've already got substantial use of electricity to heat our homes relative to people who use oil and gas. But that's an issue for another day, and I'm not going to talk too much about it.
Did you have to fight your corner, though, on that one, didn't you? You lost, right?
Well, I didn't. Yeah, that was before I joined the Council of Ministers, and so my position is a matter of public record, and I can't deny I believe what I believe, which is that at the end, ultimately, we have spent 40 or 50 million pounds from the bond repayment fund and from reserves of Manx Utilities Authority to keep electricity prices.
But it's only a loan from us to taxpayers, right?
26 million pounds is a loan, and the other bit of it is spent from the reserve. So I was less keen on doing that than some other people were. Highways. We don't spend enough on maintaining our highways. We also have a way of getting to the minister or the MHK or the commissioner to actually get a pothole fix. Both of those things can't be right. We've got to have a better system where we actually prioritise roads and operate the customer services.
So certain people have the sway to get potholes, because you used to have this before your time, obviously. There was great rumours about certain people in power who could get a road fixed because they lived on that road, or you think that was the case? Yeah,
so one success then is regulation being in place. Another one is beginning to think through practical issues in highways and infrastructure and all the other parts of infrastructure. A third one would be, I believe and I know that we've got to do something about our population challenge, and now that's official government policy. I first moved the motion. I got in Paul Crane's book, citing the motion that I moved, so it's always been very important. Healthcare, what my manifesto said was that we were still in a very challenged position. The hospital and the social care system and the GP practices work for a lot of people a lot of the time, most of the time in fact, but they're not completely working, and we've got to go with the Manx care.
We've filled our first slot just like that.
As always, I've enjoyed
there's
it.
So many things. But in part 2, I want to talk about what's coming up this year, but keep the DOI maybe to one side again, because that's what everyone's wanting to see, that interview. So part 2 coming up.